What is up, everybody? Welcome to Party on Broad. Today, Ryan, we are 5 weeks into the college football season, and it's crazy. We're a quarter way in, man.
Yeah. It's been it's kind of been a quick thing here. It's kind of happened before our eyes, and it's funny looking back. There's a lot to talk about for sure, but there's a lot of football left. There's a lot to be determined, man. So a lot can happen and will happen over the next what is it, 12 or so more
Yeah.
weeks.
Yep, there's teams on the rise, there's teams on the decline. We're going to start off with 5 weeks in, our top three Eagles targets for the first round and our top three Eagles targets on day 2 and day 3. I'll let you lead off, man. From everything we have learned so far through 5 weeks, man, what are your top three prospects in the first round for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, so listen, I kind of didn't want to go with I don't want to pigeonhole myself into something like, oh, well, this guy's not going to be available. Like, we don't know that yet. I mean, listen, we can all project people going in the top 5. Like, I'm not going to say Caleb Williams, okay, you got me there. But like, there are other positions that you don't know, ups and downs, players move from, first to 10th in a heartbeat. It's weird. It's a weird system, but so I just said, hey, listen, these are guys that I'm pretty certain are going to be first rounders. First guy I thought of was Jared Verse. He's a guy I wanted last year. He's a guy that we all thought he was coming out. He pulled it back at the last second. This dude absolutely would have been a first round selection last year. He is taking a very good Florida State team, and he is absolutely being the leader on that team there. He just has that unique blend of size, speed, versatility. But yeah, listen, I just like what he can do, and I think, listen, if the Eagles have a shot to add to the defensive line, we all know that Howie absolutely loves any opportunity he can get to get another defender. And with Brandon Graham, again, we don't know how long, he's going to be with us. And we don't know how Nolan Smith is certainly going to play out. Obviously, they're slow playing him. So yeah, listen, let's keep adding to the defensive line. So Jared Verse from Florida State for sure.
Howie Roseman going to the trenches in the first round. That is a bet you take all day long. Chalk it up. Joining us now, he is my man, Ryan Coyle of the Beef Up Front podcast. What's going on, Ryan?
What's going on, guys? Good to see you. Excited to be here and talk some draft as well as some other college football stuff.
Love it, man. All right, so Ryan went Jared Verse. Do you want to – I think you had Jared Verse in your list for the Eagles in the first round. Is that true?
Yeah, so, I mean, Verse is a guy that I really liked going back to last year, and I still think it's crazy how he found his way to Albany out of high school and how he's kind of went under the radar there, but really exploded on the scene last year at Florida State. His numbers are a little bit down this year, but still when you watch the tape and you're just watching Florida State, he's still a guy that certainly is popping off. I think he only has a half a sack so far this season, but I think this is a guy that still has a lot of raw ability and is just coming into his own. And I think I caught the tail end of what you were just saying there. I think going to the trenches is certainly something that we've seen in the past out of Howie Roseman that's given us success, and it's kind of the method they want to go to going forward. Yeah. And I think we're really going to have to start finding a future replacement there for Brandon Graham, because maybe he comes back for another year after this, but you can't really rely on him as an edge rusher anymore. And I think Josh Sweat is more that guy that could be like that future Brandon Graham, where maybe a few Pro Bowls, 7-8 sacks a year type of guy. But I think Verse could maybe be that more high-level edge rusher. And as you were saying too, Ryan, Nolan Smith still slow playing him a little bit, see what he has maybe as we go on more in the season. But I think defensive line and edge rusher is certainly going to be something that they look to address next year.
Yeah, I love Jared Verse. If he's there, that's a no-brainer pick for Howie Roseman. Wouldn't that be something like a Jalen Carter slide to the Eagles there? But he's I think the premier edge rusher at this point. Dallas Turner, Chop Robinson, Braylon Trice, they're all, I think, pretty near locked for the first round. I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to go to a guy for Penn State that I've loved for a long time. He is Kalen King, great athlete, not producing a lot of numbers like Jared Verse, but it's because nobody throws his damn way. He's kind of been on his own there. He's only got one pass deflection through 5 games and 11 total tackles. Incredible instincts, explosiveness, quick feet. He's a guy that can fit a variety of schemes and coverages. Very versatile. Last year, he saw a lot of targets and was extremely successful, broke up a ton of passes. I like his aggressiveness, fighting for the football. He's got that alpha mentality, and you look across this defense. I mean, if there's any weakness right now, it's the Eagles' coverage. They are struggling big time in those areas. So keep pumping in. I know we're a quarterback factory, but let's become a cornerback factory, because there's some question marks for sure in terms of the longevity of a Bradbury, a Darius Slay, and that moving forward. So Kalen King is my guy there. Ryan, who is your other target here?
Yeah, Kalen King was. Oh, sorry.
God, I just realized there's 2 Ryans tonight. Oh my God.
You got it first.
Yeah, you got to remember it. No. I wouldn't be a show without me mentioning a linebacker. Anybody who knows me, I love my linebackers, and I'm going back to I don't know when we, however long, 5-6 weeks ago when we started this show, we talked about our initial prospects then, and I'm still going to go with him. And it's Trotter Jr. I mean, what an amazing story this is still going to be. Once Howie fools everyone and gets them into a false sense of hope of, oh, we only do trenches. Nope, not this year. We're going linebacker, baby. And listen, I absolutely am in love with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. He had certainly himself a day the other day. Listen, he is certainly, still has a lot of room to grow, but he certainly kind of has that smallest frame when it comes to linebackers, but he certainly can lay the lumber, so to speak. And he's got really good instincts, really good closing speed, all the things that you want in a linebacker. And listen, we haven't had a great linebacker probably since his dad. Honestly, I mean, we've had a couple of guys here and there have a cup of coffee, but we need a true linebacker that's going to be here for years and years. And what a great story it would be to have Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Alongside with Nakobe Dean and apparently Morrow, who had himself a day yesterday. And listen, those 3 can be the premier linebacking core, and we'll be known as the linebacker factory before long.
I appreciate your dedication, man. It's never happening.
Keep talking about it. I'm just putting it into the air and hope football gods come down and bless us and bless Howie with the knowledge that linebackers are people too, and they matter.
Ryan Coyle, I forgot to mention you also had Kalen King on your list. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit on everything for him as a prospect wise. I was more so looking, I think he's going to be a guy where I'm expecting the Eagles to pick between, 25 to 32, that type of range. And when you look at the corners right now, the top 2 on the roster, Slay and Bradbury, 32 is Slay and James Bradbury is 30. And then Avonte Maddox, over his Eagles tenure so far, he's been a guy that's missed time each and every season, it seems like. So we have a lot of young, talented guys that they're looking to develop, from Goodrich to Job to Eli Ricks. But I don't really know if you can count on, especially with a team this loaded everywhere else in a win now mode, count on some undrafted guys to develop into some high level corners. You need guys that can come in and play. And we've seen King do it time and time again now at Penn State. They've had a good track record recently of some secondary players going to the NFL and having some success. So I think this is a guy that's going to be there towards the back half of the first round. And with with a need of an infusion of youth, I think at that cornerback spot, at least high investments, not so much these undrafted guys. I think that's a spot that they're going to have to look as well. But off the top of my head, the highest corner that we've picked recently, Sidney Jones back in 2016, I believe. So, I mean, that's not a spot as well, like we were saying with linebacker, that the Eagles have shown a tendency to kind of invest in. They tend to go either the trade with Slay or the free agent route.
Yeah, the cornerback class is really interesting. I think, for me at least, it's 1A Kool-Aid McKinstry, then it's like 1B Kalen King. And I think there's a drop. I think there's a pretty decent drop. Again, it's so early. So much is going to change. I was talking to Shane the other day, like how like already, and we're through 5 weeks, and like I look back at my preseason rankings, like you can just throw those out the window. Like it's already changed so much in respect to a lot of different positions. But another cornerback that's in my top 3 that I want to talk about is Cooper DeJean. He's a white Iowa cornerback, which is kind of funny. But especially when you talk about success in the NFL. But I think he's a great playmaker. I truly do. 6'1", 209, 210 pounds. I kind of talked a lot about Brian Branch last year. Brian Branch was one of my favorite prospects in the draft. And I kind of see this guy in somewhat similar light. Great versatility. He's a guy that can line up in the slot. He's a guy that can play safety. He's a guy that can play outside. He can play some linebacker. I know the Eagles love those kind of dudes. This guy was a major playmaker last year. I think he had 3 touchdowns and like 6 picks. Like he's amazing at attacking the ball. He doesn't have a lot of production so far through 2023, just 1 pass deflection and 1 interception. But yeah, coming off that 2022 campaign, man, his stats were ridiculous. And I still think he's a great talent. But Cooper DeJean, absolutely in that back end of round 1 would definitely, make me think about it. So I think I was the only one that had Cooper DeJean, at least on my end. I'll throw it to you, Ryan. Coyle first. Who's your last Eagles target for round 1?
Well, first, before that, I can see it now. If we do get DeJean, the T-shirts down in the Link parking lot of him and Reed Blankenship together. That would be funny. But my third guy, I'm actually going to go to the offensive side of the ball with this one. And this is a guy that I've been back in this Florida State squad for since the offseason, and it's a guy that's really popped off for me. That's Keon Coleman, the wide receiver. Something just tells me with this Eagles team that if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, there could be some potential drama between some of these receivers this offseason. In terms of Devontae is most likely going to have to get paid probably this offseason. AJ will probably be the second highest paid receiver then on the team. I could see potentially, if this team doesn't win at all, some drama. So I don't think it would be that dumb of a decision to look at the wide receiver room again. I still think even if they do keep Devontae and AJ together long term, they do need another solid number 3. And Coleman's a little bit of a different animal than those two. AJ Brown, great 50-50 guy. So is Devontae Smith, but they're still a little bit undersized. You get a 6'4", 215-pound receiver here in Keon Coleman. I think that just gives you another weapon, especially down in the red zone. He's like a power forward type guy. Yeah. Already has 6 touchdowns this year. And it's really hard not to love his game. I think Michigan State really underutilized him. And I think the way that the Eagles show the ability to kind of usher in these new weapons to their offense and get the full use of their abilities, we're kind of seeing that with him at Florida State as well. And if he does find his way towards that back half of the first round, certainly should be something that they should be looking at, depending on the contract situations and the talks between Devontae and AJ.
When we talked earlier about like positions that have completely changed, I think of Keon Coleman in the wide receiver position because like my preseason rankings, I had Keon Coleman as an underrated prospect. I think he's playing like a first round pick. That's how good he's been. Yeah. And with Florida State, number 4, Keon Coleman has had some big time moments. And I think he's putting pressure on guys like Xavier Worthy and Nick Buka for like wide receiver 2, 6'4", that athleticism, that ability to be a major threat in the red zone, man, he's a great prospect, underrated, and well, probably not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he certainly might not be. And listen, you just named, we just talked about the corners. I mean, think about last year. Think about who we all had in the top 5 last year, and Eli Ricks was one of them. Man, that doesn't get drafted. I mean, it's such a shaky thing for some of these positions, and wide receiver, I fully expect the kind of the true top to kind of roughly stay the same. But Coleman, yeah, he kind of. I wouldn't say came out of nowhere, but he certainly has been one of probably the biggest risers so far through 5 weeks in any position to kind of come from the back end to now first round, prospect. So
for sure. All right, who's your last one, Ryan Reese?
All right, listen, I always am going to need help pronouncing, but I'm going to give it a shot first. And this is a position that the Eagles will absolutely always draft and always need, especially with Lane Johnson, his career, future uncertain. So I went with an offensive tackle, Kingsley Suamataia.
It's close enough. I think it's Suamataia, but you get it. That's pretty amazing.
Listen, like I've been saying, all these shows. By the time the draft comes, I will have these names down. Do not worry. I will practice like I'm practicing for the SATs. But this guy out of BYU, he's a big dude. He went from the right side to the left tackle to replace Blake Freeland, who got drafted this past year. Listen, he absolutely has some versatility to play alongside the line, which obviously the Eagles absolutely love. But yeah, listen, we really do need to figure out our Lane Johnson, kind of backup plan. I know we drafted Tyler Steen, and maybe we thought he was going to, work out at right guard. Obviously, Jurgens kind of took that over. So yeah, we're a little unsure of what's going to happen here, but listen, he absolutely has, a quickness about him. He's very agile, and he's very long, and he does put that really good use, really aggressive hands. Certainly has some things to work on. Big shoes to fill, as I said. Great footwork, great technique when it comes to that. And really effective, whether it comes to, the run game or the passing game. Certainly does need to work on, kind of that initial punch, I would say. But that's certainly something that he's been improving on this year. And I think, he definitely, the need for offensive, tackles is always going to be there. And yes, he might not be in that, top 2 or 3, but he's that next tier that could be that back end of the first round that could, really intrigue the Eagles to get their Lane Johnson replacement for whenever or whatever he decides to do moving forward.
All right, I'm going to go real quick because I feel like we're going to talk about him again soon. But a guy that you look across that Clemson defense. It's loaded. There's so many stars. You already mentioned one of them, but the guy that, for me at least, that pops off tape that always seems to get my attention is Nate Wiggins. He's another cornerback prospect, 6'2", 185 pounds. The theme of the day here is versatility. He can play both left, both right cornerbacks. He can thrive in zone. He can thrive in man. Moves really well, really fluid athlete at 6'2", and very explosive for a taller cornerback. I think he's a guy that would really dominate and press at the next level. He's got a wide receiver background, which you can tell when you watch tape. His big kind of write-up entering 2023 that he's raw and inconsistent, but like I just said, every time you turn on Clemson, it's not Trotter Jr. or Barrett Carter. standing out, it's Nate Wiggins. He's got an interception for a touchdown already. He's got a sack, 2 pass deflections, a tackle for loss in 4 games. He's been all over the place. Clemson has had kind of a rocky start to 2023, but for me, Nate Wiggins at the back end of round 1. I went full coverage, full secondary route for my first 3. But that is our kind of main guys for day 1. We're going to do day 2 and day 3 different. Let's just go bang, 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 each one of you, and then we'll jump into some like bigger takes on through 5 weeks of college football. Ryan Coyle, what are your day 2, day 3 targets for the Eagles? All 3.
All 3 of them. All right. So first one, I'm looking at the offense again. I'm going to go to the running back spot. You were just talking about Clemson. I'm going to go with Will Shipley. He's obviously being the white running back that can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's going to get the Christian McCaffrey comparisons. He's nowhere near the talent level as him, but he's like a Christian McCaffrey light where he's going to be able to, I think, run routes as like a receiver type, hurt teams out of the backfield, but he's a very good runner as well, and he can run downhill too. And we know the Eagles' tendency to not really pay these running backs. DeAndre Swift could be a 1,200, 1,300 yard back if he stays healthy this year. But will the Eagles want to shell out all that money for him? I don't know. And I think Will Shipley could be a better version of like a Kenny Gainwell for this offense. So I think that's a spot to potentially look at in the 2nd or 3rd round. I'm going to go to the offensive line for my next guy, an ACC tackle with Graham Barton out of Duke. Kind of like Ryan was saying, it's time to start potentially planning for that successor for Lane Johnson. I was looking this year at the draft. If the Eagles didn't wind up getting Jalen Carter, I was looking at Darnell Wright potentially there at number 10, maybe Broderick Jones, one of those guys in that type of area, just because Lane is in double-digit years. He has talked about kind of his mental health struggles off the field. If that might be something that gets in the way of him playing much longer, if he doesn't want to play without his guys like Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, and kind of turn it over onto some new guys. So I think Barton is an intriguing guy. He's held his own against some pretty good defensive lines so far this year. So that's another guy I'm looking at. And then another guy I really like, and I think we might see him go up in the round 1 if Washington continues the success. That's wide receiver Jalen McMillan. Going back to what I was saying about Keon Coleman, I think looking at adding another potential long-term investment at the receiver spot would be a smart move for this offense, depending on contract situations, or just adding a really strong number 3. And Jalen McMillan could be that guy that takes the top off the defense, a 4.38 40 time he's been clocked at in the past, and he's one of the more explosive receivers in all of college football right now. Might need to add a little bit more weight, but Zacchaeus has had a pretty nice time, but he's on a 1-year deal. Quez Watkins had some nice flashes, but he hasn't really shown the ability to stay healthy recently. So I think adding another long-term receiver there for Jalen Hurts would be another wise investment.
All 3 great selections. I like the Graham Barton pick too, like given the Eagles and how Stoutland loves guys, that potentially I think Graham Barton could shift inside at the next level. We'll see. I don't know.
It's weird. It's also too how they view Steen, if they view him long-term as that tackle or guard.
Right.
Also because I don't know if you guys watched the Kelsey documentary, but I would be very surprised if he comes back after this year. I think Jurgen slides over to center, and then do they want Steen at guard and maybe Barton then at tackle if that's in the play, or the other way around? I mean, they're really good at cross-training a lot of these guys, it seems like. So I think that's going to play a big part in that as well. Yeah,
Jalen McMillan is a great prospect. That definitely does. A lot of people don't know about that guy because he's in Rome Odunze's shadow way too much. And Rome Odunze is a terrific prospect in his own right. But McMillan, he'll get his opportunity. Washington is so good this year. They're going to be in big games, and McMillan definitely has a real opportunity to make some noise. Ryan Reese, who are your 3?
All right. So for my day 2, day 3 guys, I'm going to start off with the safety position. No disrespect to the man, the myth, the legend, Sidney Brown. But the Eagles definitely need to figure out what's going on in that defensive backfield. Obviously, you have mentioned a bunch of corners. I'm going to mention a couple of safeties here. I'm going to start with Tyler Nubin out of Minnesota. This guy has absolutely, for me, kind of climbed up my board. And I've really been enjoying, kind of watching him. play this year, and certainly from last year as well. He absolutely has great fluid hips, can run with the receivers. Seems to be very kind of have that natural awareness, which is certainly something that you can't really teach, but has a great frame. And absolutely honestly just one of those guys that you just watch and you just know that he's a playmaker and really just kind of the captain of a defense, seeing kind of everything. So I think again, also depending on kind of how safety's viewed, he may be one of the top safeties off the board, but again, that position seems to be getting pushed back into day 2, day 3 at times. So next, I am going to go with tight end, and I'm going to go with JT Sanders. This guy I absolutely love. If you've seen any of Texas's game, this guy absolutely stands out. He is just a big, menacing dude, but he is absolutely, can get that separation. Can absolutely kind of run into people, and just really just has been dominant, honestly. Great size, great length, and I have been absolutely loving what Texas has been doing this year. And let's be honest, tight end 2 has certainly been a bit of a question mark. I've publicly stated my hate for some of the Eagles' backup tight ends. I won't get into it, but we definitely need an upgrade there. And Sanders is an absolute, chain mover, kind of how when we got Goddard, when we still had Zach Ertz, kind of doing the same thing with Goddard, get his eventual replacement and kind of have the two-headed monster for as long as we can have that. So next, I'm going to go back to safety, and I'm going to go to the West Coast, and I'm going to go to USC and Kellen Bullock, safety, as I said, from USC. This guy has absolutely just a great ability to high point the football and make those plays. I think, again, safety has been kind of a little disrespected over the last few years. So, this guy has wide receiver ability. He used to be a former wide receiver, and certainly shows it with his hands. He has a tall frame, long arms, strong hands, and just really has a great kind of catch radius, if you'll use kind of the wide receiver term, more so than most safeties have. So, I think with his ball skills and the need the Eagles have at a safety position to kind of complement Reed Blankenship and try to figure out that other safety spot. Again, no disrespect to Sidney Brown. Don't want him on the bad side. So.
Got it. All right. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go through this. My number one, Tyler Newman. You crushed it, Ryan. Really like him a lot. Yeah. He's a fantastic prospect. Just makes plays all day. I did have Kingsley Suamataia as my number 2. I agree. Definitely a real chance he goes round 1. But I think he's in that next tier to be a round 2 guy. I would love him. And then sticking with the offensive tackles, Tyler Guyton, a very athletic right tackle prospect for Oklahoma. Seems like a guy that Jeff Stoutland would fall in love with. I expect this guy to dominate the athleticism tests, the draft process, and really make a name for himself. And we've seen the Eagles love those kind of prospects. But let's move on to more kind of general takes on college football through week 5. The team that impressed you the most is Ryan Coyle.
I've already talked about 2 of their guys tonight, so I'm just going to keep it with the Seminoles. They were the team I was backing throughout the offseason. And I think that they had the biggest September out of any school. going into the season, and then they were able to live up to the hype, beating LSU and then beating Clemson. I know both of these teams already have 2 losses now, but one of them is to Florida State. I think that beating that LSU game, just kind of getting over that hump of, all right, Florida State's looking like they're back. And then that road game at Clemson. You can say what you want about Clemson, but they're most likely still going to be a 8-9 win team, I would say, by the end of the year. And going to Death Valley and winning is never easy. And it's a team I think that has NFL players littered across both sides of the ball. So a team that I certainly think will be right there in the conversation at the end of the season when it comes to the college football playoff. Duke and Miami, I believe, as of right now, are the only 2 ranked teams left on their schedule going forward. So I think that they have a pretty, out of all the teams at the top right now, maybe Texas is up there, but I think they have the best chance to run the table and be that number 1 team heading into the playoff. Will they get over the top at the end? That still remains to be seen, but they've got dudes on that team. And when they go out there 9 times out of 10 this year, they're going to be the most talented squad on the field. So really like this Florida State team, not just what I've seen from them, but what I'm expecting of them going forward.
Yeah, Florida State is one of my teams too, man. They are absolutely loaded, top to bottom. Jordan Travis, Johnny Wilson, of course, Jared Verse. They're just loaded. Ryan, Reese, which team has impressed you the most through 5 weeks?
I'm going to go with the Washington Huskies. Listen, they have been an offensive juggernaut. I absolutely love their offense and cannot get enough of it. I believe they're ranked 7th. They have a couple of really tough tests coming up with the Oregon Ducks, I believe, in about 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
And then USC a couple of weeks later, I think the Ducks are 8 and USC is 9. So they're all top 10 guys right now. So yeah, it's absolutely going to be a dogfight for those teams out west. And listen, they have some absolute first round guys. You obviously mentioned Jalen McMillan, a guy that can kind of has been kind of under the shadow of Roma Dunze, who another wonderful wide receiver. I think both of those guys are especially Dunze will definitely be a first rounder. And McMillan, again, could certainly sneak in there depending on, how the season goes. But, Penix Jr. has been absolutely lights out. I did not think, honestly, he would be the guy who I'm truly thinking as the solid number 3. But he has certainly shown it. And honestly, over the next couple of games, they also have Utah. I mean, they got a tough schedule, so they've been doing great, and they got some tough battles. But I fully expect them to be in the mix there, especially if they get those wins. Man, I mean, how could they not be in that playoff? Getting wins against Oregon or USC. I mean, they're great. I love watching them.
Yeah, rest in peace, Pac-12. They're going out with a bang, right?
Yeah, sure.
To go out.
I mean, they are some of the best offenses. Absolutely, is in the Pac-12. My team is Notre Dame. I was not high on Notre Dame at all entering the season. Man, I was not on the bandwagon. I thought Sam Hartman was overrated. When I saw his name in the transfer portal, I said, "Who cares?" But my God, do I look stupid right now? Because I think Notre Dame's pretty legit. The offense has had some big time flashes this year. Audric Estime is one of my favorite running back prospects. Just a tank, a Mack truck running back. I would love to see the Eagles target on day 2, quite frankly. But Joe Alt, Blake Fisher, they have some bookends there at tackle. And then, you saw the offense struggle against Duke last week. But then you get Notre Dame's defense stepping up in a big way. They have a cornerback prospect in Benjamin Morrison. Again, that's not being talked about enough. Shut down Travis Hunter for Colorado. And he just makes plays all day. He's going to be a top 10 pick in 2025. He's that good. Again, Notre Dame has a huge test on the horizon. They have USC at home and then a road game at Clemson, man. But my pick for Notre Dame is more so about how they look great. They do look great. And I think the performance of Sam Hartman absolutely just changes their whole projection. He definitely increases their ceiling for a college football playoff 1,000%. That being said, let's move to a team you're most unsure about. And I might be the biggest Caleb Williams fan there is, but for me, it's USC. I don't know. I need to know more because this one's all about that USC defense, especially in a conference like we just said, with some of the best offenses in the league that can light it up, like Oregon and Washington. But the Trojans have struggled to put away ASU. They struggled to put away Colorado. I know that Pac-12 isn't known for great defense, but this is a defense that is third worst in the conference, giving up over 400 yards per game. They're second worst in the conference with giving up 148 yards per game on the ground. I don't know. I think that's going to be the nail in the coffin for USC is can Caleb Williams play hero ball? We'll see. But I do not believe, Bear Alexander on that defensive line makes a lot of plays. He's a transfer from Georgia, 5-star recruit, but I just don't believe in that defense whatsoever. Ryan Quill, what is a team that you are unsure about?
Yeah, USC is actually the squad I had written down.
Nice.
I mean, despite having, as you were saying, Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley leading an offense that's putting up 53.6 points per game, they scored 42 or more in all 5 of their games. I am still very worried about that defense, like you said. I mean, allowing 41 to a Colorado squad that almost got blanked by Oregon. And then USC, as we were just kind of talking about with Washington as well, the Murderers Row schedule they have coming up. They still have Utah, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, and Notre Dame on the schedule. It's very possible if the defense doesn't come to play and if Caleb Williams isn't playing his freakish performances that we were accustomed to, that USC team could lose 2 or 3 of those games. So we've also seen Lincoln Riley teams down the stretch kind of wear out and lose steam, and USC's toughest games are still ahead of them. If you remember last year, they lost that Pac-12 title game to Utah. Then they went and lost the Cotton Bowl to Tulane. And then he has never won a playoff game during his time in Oklahoma either. So this is a USC squad that I still think you should be reserved for. And I'm expecting, though, a bunch of chaos down the stretch here in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 might get that first ever two-loss team to the playoff just because of how good the conference might be down the stretch and teams just kind of beating up on each other.
It's kind of cool too. I think about it, Caleb Williams, a lot of people are calling the next Patrick Mahomes. That's how good he is. He's going to be the number 1 pick, whichever draft he declares on. And look at that schedule, man. Washington, Notre Dame, Oregon. He can't make mistakes. He's going to go on Saturdays, and he literally, the second he makes a mistake, could be the end of his season. It's going to be wild, man. Ryan Reese, who is your team that you're most unsure about?
Well, so I decided to go with the LSU Tigers. They obviously started off the year with a tough task in Florida State, and they hung with them for a little bit, but Florida ended up putting 45 points on that defense, and they got themselves right, couple of wins there, and then had a tough battle with Ole Miss, and again let up 55 points to what is arguably a very good offense in Ole Miss. But yeah, it's again, I don't know which team we're getting. They still held on to a top 25 ranking. They're the only 2. Of course, Shane. They're the only 2-loss team in the top 25, and obviously they're in the SEC. They're going to have a lot of tough tests moving forward. So they certainly have the ability to get big wins and kind of get themselves back. But again, I don't know their squad, the roster that they have, the ability shows that they should be a lot better of a team, and it's just not being put out on the field. So, they're going to have some tough tests coming up. And honestly, if they're not ready for it, they could easily go into obscurity and the bottom of the SEC. real quick.
Yeah, they have some wild prospects, man. Malik Neighbors, Mason Smith, like first round guys, locks.
Yeah.
That'd be disappointing for sure. All right. That basically wraps it up. I'm going to throw it to you, Ryan Quill. Final thoughts, plugs. Time's yours, man.
Yeah, Ryan Coyle 35 on Twitter at Beef Up Front. You can find that on Twitter too. And we're on the Pick Swap Media YouTube channel. Now we've started doing some stuff on Fox, The Gambler Philadelphia. So thank you guys for having me on. It was fun, and hope to get it back on soon. And I think college football this year is just going to be insane. The NFL is, I think, off to an underwhelming start, but some of these college games, especially what we got down the stretch, most likely in the Pac-12, we're going to have some really good fireworks. The Big Ten between Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, all having to play each other as well. And then the SEC never disappoints either. So a lot of fun, exciting stuff to look forward to. And hopefully for the Eagles' sake, we're talking about the 32nd overall pick in just a few months.
Yeah, Ryan Quill does the Beef Up Front podcast. Definitely check that out if you love NFL draft and college football, man. Amazing, amazing stuff. But I wholeheartedly agree about college football this year. You've got major programs with some big question marks at quarterback at the top, which kind of evens the playing field a little bit, where there's like 10 great teams at least that are going to be in the running. It's going to be a ton of fun, man. Ryan Reese, you're up, man.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think while we're all getting, sick of Taylor Swift and the NFL. College football has certainly has been providing us with some great moments so far in the first quarter. So I highly recommend, again, if you're not a big college guy, that's fine. Like, there's so many great games that just, you could just be a fan of football. And what's the beauty of shows like this and some of the work, that we've done and Dives specifically, and I'm sure Ryan as well, is getting yourself used to some of the names that are going to be coming out, next April for the NFL draft. And, it's great to kind of familiarize yourself with these guys, as the draft process kind of happens. So start it now. Start checking out, old videos. I know EOP got a ton of them. Get yourself familiar with these guys and really then watch them on Saturdays and really fall in love with these guys. So other than that, we're doing this show every Monday. We got Birds of the Round Table on Tuesdays. We got I have Philly Sports Alliance stuff going on throughout the week. So certainly check that out. Party on Broad Wednesdays. Too much stuff, but I love it. Make sure again you give everybody here a follow on Twitter, a like anywhere you can find all of us. It means the world to us, and got to support Philly area people, and that's what we're doing here. So thank you very much in advance, and always love doing this stuff, talking NFL, talking draft.
All right, guys, that basically wraps it up. Again, give my man Ryan Coyle a follow at Ryan Coyle 35 Beef Up Front podcast, Pick Swap Media. I literally just got done doing a show with Sean on the Sixers. How exciting!
Go Phillies!
Yeah, exactly. Go Phillies! Amen.
Well said about that. So Beef Up Front podcast, check it out. He is Ryan Reese. I am Dives. That is Ryan. We'll catch you next time on Party on Broad. Stay awesome, everyone.